The great chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with noise. Hundreds of voices echoed in different tones and languages, some calm, some sharp, and some almost trembling. The chamber itself was vast, shaped like a circle, with seats rising higher and higher in tiers. At the center stood a glowing platform where the vote would be taken, a place that had seen many decisions in history, but never one quite like this. Every seat was filled with representatives from countless worlds, slender insect-like creatures from the rim, heavy-scaled reptilians from the burning stars, tall and luminous beings whose bodies shimmered like light itself. Together they represented 1,000 species and 1,000 cultures. Yet today, nearly all of them had gathered for one single question: what to do with Earth and its people? A voice rose above the noise. It belonged to Counselor Travik of the Scifi, a race known for their rigid order and discipline. His scales were dark green, his eyes narrow, and his voice cold. "Humans," he said, pausing so that the word carried weight. "They are too dangerous, too unpredictable. They have broken more treaties than any race in their short time among us. They speak of peace, yet build weapons in secret. They claim friendship, yet rush to war at the smallest insult. I say it is time we protect the galaxy from their reckless nature. Exile them." The chamber rippled with sound. Some clapped their clawed hands or tapped their tentacles on the floor in agreement. Others hissed or murmured uneasily. From another seat, a tall figure stood, Counselor Marenya of the Illyrians, a species known for diplomacy. Her glowing body shimmered softly as she spoke. "Counselor Travik, your words are heavy, but we must be fair. Humans are young compared to us. They stumble, yes, but they also learn quickly. Have we not seen them heal worlds poisoned by war? Have we not watched them stand against threats that even our fleets feared?" Travik's eyes narrowed further. "And have we not also seen them burn their own planet with war? Have we not seen them fight each other, even when peace was at hand? Do not be fooled by their clever tongues, Marenya. Humanity is a spark that will burn the galaxy if left unchecked." The voices grew louder. Some shouted in agreement. Others cried out in defense of Earth. The debate went on for hours. One alien after another rose to speak, some bringing long lists of human crimes, others telling stories of human kindness and bravery. But as the sun outside the council chamber shifted and the great hall dimmed with twilight, it became clear that the tide was turning. The majority of races were afraid of what humanity might become, afraid of their restless spirit, afraid of their ability to rise even after defeat. Finally, the High Chancellor rose from his seat at the highest point of the chamber. His form was difficult to describe, a shifting cloud of light and shadow. Yet his voice carried authority that silenced every corner of the hall. "The hour has come. The words have been spoken. Now the vote must be taken." The chamber darkened as a great sphere appeared above the central platform, glowing with countless small lights. Each light represented one world, one vote. Slowly, one by one, the lights changed. Color blue for exile, gold for mercy. The chamber held its breath as the sphere filled with shifting colors. At first, gold lights flashed brightly. A small hope stirred among the few who had spoken for Earth. But then the blue began to spread. One after another, worlds chose exile. The gold lights were swallowed until only a handful remained. When the last light faded, the sphere glowed almost entirely blue. The decision was final. Earth was exiled. Humanity was cast out of the Galactic Council. The chamber erupted into noise again. Some cheered. Some argued, some sat in silence. In one corner, a human ambassador stood. His name was Elias Grant, a middle-aged man with sharp eyes and a calm face. He had been silent throughout the debate, though many expected him to fight with words. But now, even as the vote was announced, he said nothing. Counselor Marenya turned to him. "Ambassador Grant," she said softly, almost with pity, "I am sorry. The council has spoken. Perhaps, in time, the decision will change." Grant's face revealed no anger, no sadness. He simply nodded once. "I understand," he said in a steady voice. "Earth will honor the council's choice." Then he turned and walked out of the chamber without another word. That silence struck the hearts of many. Some expected rage, protests, or desperate bargaining. But instead, humanity gave nothing. No plea, no threat, no cry of injustice. Only quiet acceptance, and for reasons none could explain. That silence was more unsettling than any anger would have been. In the days that followed, news spread quickly. Earth had been exiled. No trade, no travel, no alliances. Their ambassadors were ordered to leave Council worlds within a week. Their colonies on shared planets were to be abandoned. Their fleets were forbidden from crossing Council space. At first, many aliens celebrated. They spoke of safety, of peace, without humans stirring chaos. Yet others felt uneasy. The humans did not resist. They did not argue. One by one, their colonies emptied. Their trade stations shut down. Their ships left Council space without a sound. It was as if humanity was vanishing into the void. A merchant captain on a border world watched a human freighter depart. The human crew loaded their ship quietly, spoke politely to those around them, and left. No farewell speeches, no bitterness, only silence. A scholar from a distant system wrote in her journal, "I thought I would feel relief when they left. But now the stars feel emptier, as if something important has gone missing." Even Counselor Travick, who had pushed hardest for Exile, felt a strange unease. He had expected humans to fight back, to shout, to threaten. Instead, they had bowed their heads and disappeared. And in that silence, he sensed something dangerous, something hidden. Waiting, back on Earth, the people gathered in quiet towns and busy cities. The decision had been delivered, and every human understood what it meant. They were no longer part of the galaxy's great circle. But instead of despair, something else began to grow among them: unity. For the first time in history, every human nation, every settlement, every colony turned their eyes not outward to the stars of the Council, but inward, toward their own kind. They would not waste their energy on begging to return. They would not shout at the universe for being unfair. They would move forward in silence, together. And so, humanity departed from the galactic stage without a word. But their silence was not weakness. It was a storm gathering beyond the horizon, one the galaxy would one day hear. The galaxy had expected anger. They had expected humans to fight, to resist, to argue with fiery speeches or send fleets to challenge the decision of Exile. But instead, the humans left without a sound. That silence became the loudest echo across the stars. On the trade world of Vera, one of the busiest hubs in Council space, merchants watched as the last human ship prepared to leave port. The freighter was old and patched with repairs, but it had always carried rare goods from Earth: coffee, grain, music, chips, and small machines that humans seemed to build with a strange personal touch. Now, the ship stood quiet at the docks. Its crew loaded the final containers with calm movements. One merchant, a four-eyed Solari trader, called out, "You will not return, human?" The captain, a woman with streaks of silver in her dark hair, looked at him and gave a faint smile. "We will not," she said simply. Then she closed the ramp and lifted off without another word. The Solari trader stood frozen, the taste of unease on his tongue. He had wanted anger. He had expected humans to curse the Council and swear revenge. Instead, their silence unsettled him in ways he could not explain. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Human ambassadors closed their offices. Human families packed their belongings and boarded ships bound for Earth. Human workers left colonies where they had once labored side by side with alien allies. No tears were shed in public. No protests shook the streets. Only quiet departures. Some aliens cheered. "Good riddance," shouted voices in Council squares. Now there will be peace. But others were not so sure. A Lyrani engineer remembered the humans who had worked in her shipyard. They had laughed while they repaired broken engines, always finding clever ways to fix what others called impossible. Without them, the shipyard felt colder, quieter. On the farming world of Dalvaris, an old alien farmer watched the sky as the human settlers left. They had taught him how to grow crops that survived harsh soil, and they had shared food at his table. He stood alone in the fields now, wondering who would help when the next storm came. Even the counselors, who had voted for exile, felt something strange in the air. Counselor Marenya of the Illyrians sat in her chamber, her glowing form dim. She replayed the image of Ambassador Grant walking away without a word. She had expected tears or fury. Instead, she saw calm resolve, and she feared what that silence might mean. Counselor Travik, the strongest voice against humanity, felt victory at first. He had led the council to exile Earth, and the majority had followed. Yet as days passed, even he felt restless. He told himself it was foolish. Humans are nothing, he muttered to himself. They are weak without us. But late at night, when the stars glimmered outside his window, he could not shake the thought. What if their silence is not surrender, but preparation? Months passed. The galaxy moved on at least. It tried to, but the absence of humans grew more noticeable with each passing day. On frontier stations, repairs took longer. Humans had always been quick to improvise, to find ways around broken machines. Without them, small problems became bigger ones. On trade routes, goods that once came from Earth or human colonies disappeared. Spices, medicines, and strange inventions that humans had introduced were suddenly rare. Prices rose, and merchants began to whisper that maybe exiling humans had been too quick a choice. On council worlds, artists, scientists, and explorers missed the spark that humans had always carried. They were reckless, yes, but also full of ideas. Without them, many gatherings felt emptier, quieter, less alive. Stories began to spread, rumors of humans seen far beyond council space. A trader swore he saw a human fleet crossing into the dark sector, ships painted black and silent as shadows. Another claimed that a colony once abandoned was rebuilt overnight, with structures more advanced than before. None of these stories could be proven, but they spread like wildfire, and with each rumor, fear grew. One council session turned heated when a nervous representative cried out, "What if the humans are building an empire in the dark? What if they return not as neighbors, but as conquerors?" Counselor Travik laughed harshly. "Let them hide in the shadows. Without our trade, without our guidance, they will wither. Humanity is nothing without the council." But Marenya whispered to herself, "Are you so sure?" Back on Earth, far from the council's eyes, humanity was changing. Cities that once looked outward now turned inward. Nations that once argued now began to speak together. Scientists who once worked for council approval now shared their knowledge only with their own people. Children grew up hearing the story of exile not as tragedy, but as a lesson. They were told, "The galaxy turned its back on us. We will not cry. We will not beg. We will become strong, and one day the galaxy will see what it lost." Factories worked day and night, building ships not for trade, but for endurance. Engineers designed machines that could function without alien parts or resources. Farmers studied the soil and learned to feed billions without imports. Slowly, humanity grew independent in ways no council race had expected. And yet, no word was sent to the council. No message was broadcast across the stars. The humans remained silent. That silence haunted the galaxy. On a mining colony at the edge of council space, a group of alien miners gathered one evening. One of them said, "It is strange without humans. I did not like them, but now the stars feel emptier." Another miner nodded. "They were loud, but their silence is worse. It feels like waiting for a storm." The others shivered but said nothing. Decades would pass before humanity returned to the galactic stage. But even now, so early in their exile, the seeds of change were being planted. The galaxy thought it had rid itself of a danger. Instead, it had given that danger space to grow stronger, and as the last human ships disappeared into the void, the council chamber felt colder than it had in centuries. For though the stars were bright, something important was missing. Something the galaxy did not yet understand. Humanity was gone. Yes, but not defeated. Their silence was not an end, was the beginning of something greater. Decades had passed since humanity quietly departed from Council space. The galaxy had tried to forget them. Trade routes adjusted, colonies replaced, new alliances formed. Most races told themselves that Earth and its people had faded into isolation, powerless without the support of other civilizations. Yet, the absence of humans began to be noticed not as a lack, but as a strange gap in the galaxy's balance. Small problems grew where humans had once been present. Trade disputes escalated without their negotiation skills. Machinery broke down without their improvisation. Entire colonies struggled to survive without the clever inventions that humans had shared freely in the past. On the border planet of Valeria's, a council outpost had once thrived with a mix of alien and human engineers. Now, decades after the human departure, the colony was falling into disrepair. Machines that humans had built and maintained with a unique ingenuity began to fail. Simple repairs stretched into months-long projects. The alien engineers tried to replicate what humans had done, but their designs lacked the subtle creativity humans always used. Why did they leave us so quietly? Asked Kiro, a young alien mechanic, watching a conveyor belt jam for the third time that week. His voice trembled with frustration. They could have warned us. They could have told us what they were planning. His supervisor, a seasoned Lorani engineer, shook her head. Do not question them, she said quietly. They always move in ways we do not understand. Even in absence, they will surprise us. And she was right. On distant trade stations, strange incidents began to appear. Supplies that had gone missing years ago were suddenly found, neatly arranged in abandoned storage rooms. Broken machinery was mysteriously repaired overnight. Strange messages appeared on communication grids, cryptic codes that hinted at human activity far beyond known territories. No one could trace them. No one could explain them. Some claimed to see fleeting ships in uncharted sectors, dark shapes, moving faster than any known vessel. Scouts reported planets abandoned for centuries now, showing signs of new human settlements. And yet, no humans ever stayed in one place long enough to be caught or observed. It was as if they were ghosts moving through the galaxy, leaving only traces of their presence. The council began to take notice. A session was called to discuss these anomalies. Counselor Morenya, the Illyrian diplomat, spoke first. Her light flickered nervously as she addressed the chamber. Fellow counselors, she began. For decades we have ignored Earth and its people. We considered them exiles, removed from our affairs. Yet reports are coming in from multiple systems, strange signs of activity, repaired colonies, unexpected assistance in crises. I believe we have underestimated them. Travik's scales bristled with irritation. We exiled them, he snapped. They should not exist beyond the void we assigned to them. These reports are exaggerations, hallucinations, or perhaps deliberate tricks to distract us. But the stories continued. On the planet Ardonis, a colony had been left to die after a devastating asteroid impact decades ago. Yet survey teams discovered the colony fully restored, structures reinforced, and farms thriving once again. There was no record of human involvement, no evidence of a fleet, no trace of supply lines, only results that bore the unmistakable signature of human ingenuity. In one system, a fleet of alien traders was trapped in an asteroid field by sudden gravitational anomalies. Navigational computers failed repeatedly and panic spread. Then, as if by miracle, the traders' sensors detected a shadow passing overhead. A human ship, moving silently, appeared, scanning the asteroids with precision. Within hours, the anomalies were mapped and bypassed, allowing the fleet to escape unharmed. No one saw the humans board or leave. They had intervened and vanished, leaving only the traders' astonishment behind. Council discussions grew heated. Some feared the humans' return. Others, including Morenya, urged caution. We must not assume hostility, she said, but we must understand that humanity has not remained idle. Their exile has changed them. Yes, but in what ways, we do not yet know. Travik, however, refused to yield. Change does not mean weakness, he said. It means preparation. If they have learned patience, It is to strike when we are unready. We must not underestimate them again. Meanwhile, on Earth, humans quietly monitored the galaxy. They had not forgotten the council nor the moment of exile, but they held no desire for revenge. Instead, humanity had focused on growth, on technology, strategy, and understanding the universe beyond council space. They had learned to travel farther, adapt faster, and innovate in ways no other race had imagined. Children born in the decades of exile grew up learning the lessons of patience and ingenuity. Schools taught them not only science and engineering, but ethics and responsibility. Every human understood that power without control was dangerous. Every human knew that the galaxy had doubted them and that one day, humanity would prove that doubt wrong. Humans had also explored the darker corners of space. Seeking knowledge long ignored by the Council, they discovered resources, ancient civilizations, and technologies that had been hidden for eons. And they did so quietly, without drawing attention, preparing for a time when their skills might be needed not to conquer, but to protect. Rumors reached the Council of these hidden human accomplishments. Scholars and historians pored over data, trying to make sense of the fragments. Some believed the humans had secretly allied with ancient species. Others whispered of hidden colonies thriving in uncharted regions. None could confirm the full extent of humanity's growth. And then, the first undeniable sign appeared: a small, unassuming transmission to a Council research station. The message was brief and calm. "We see you. We are aware. We act when necessary." The station personnel were stunned. The code signature was unmistakable human. Panic spread quickly, reaching Council chambers across multiple systems. Humanity had made contact, but not in anger, not in plea, not in demand. Only in quiet, confident presence. Councilors debated endlessly. Some called for immediate action to intercept humanity's ships. Others argued for patience, to observe and understand. And through it all, Marenia kept one thought clear in her mind. Humanity was not just surviving. They were evolving, and the galaxy had no idea what they had become, in isolated sectors. Humans intervened silently, saving colonies from natural disasters, repairing failing starships, and even preventing conflicts between alien races without anyone realizing who had helped. Their actions were precise, effective, and invisible like shadows, guiding the galaxy without stepping into the light. On one small planet, a group of alien children watched a repaired irrigation system flow again after years of drought. Who could have done this? One asked. Their parents only shrugged. Some say it is the humans, one elder whispered. Those who left the Council, those who vanished into the stars. They act when needed and then disappear. And so, humanity's legend grew. They were no longer a simple race of unpredictability. They had become a force quietly shaping the galaxy. Waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves fully, Counselor Travik's warnings began to make sense to some. The exiled humans had not disappeared. They had not weakened. They had used silence and patience to grow beyond what any counselor could predict. And now, their presence, subtle but undeniable, made the Council uneasy for the first time in centuries. Across the stars, their plans were not for war, not for revenge, not for conquest. They had learned the lessons of exile. Strength without purpose is meaningless. Power without patience is wasted. Humanity had endured. Humanity had grown. And soon the galaxy would witness what that meant. But for now, they remained in silence. Their ships moved through the void. Their hands worked in distant labs and colonies. Their minds mapped the universe. The Council only glimpsed fragments, mysterious hints that something greater was coming. And in that silence, a truth became clear. The galaxy had not seen the last of humanity. In fact, it had barely begun to understand them. The seeds of their return had been planted. And when the time came, the galaxy would learn that humans, cast out in silence, had grown into a force beyond imagination. The galaxy believed it had seen the last of humans. For decades they had vanished into silence, leaving behind only rumors and ghostly signs of their work. Many council members spoke less of them as the years passed, convincing themselves that humanity had grown small and unimportant. But silence has a way of growing heavy. And one day, the galaxy learned just how wrong it had been. It began on the world of Tervan, a council core planet rich with culture and history. Its skies were blue, its cities bright with towers of glass and crystal. It had never been touched by war in centuries, for it sat in the heart of council protection. People believed themselves safe, untouchable. Then the skies split open. From the void came ships. No one had seen in generations. They were not human. Their hulls were jagged, dark, alive with strange energy. They belonged to the Velok, an ancient race once thought extinct. Long ago, the council had fought them in bloody wars, and the records told that they had been destroyed. But the records were wrong. The Velok had returned, stronger than before, their hunger for conquest burning brighter. The council fleet scrambled to defend Tarvan. Hundreds of ships rose into the sky, shields glowing, weapons ready. But the Velok tore through them like paper. Their weapons cut through shields with ease. Their ships moved with impossible speed. One by one, the proud council fleets fell, burning into Tarvan's oceans and fields. Panic swept the planet. Alarms blared in the cities. People ran into shelters. The council leaders on Tarvan sent desperate messages to nearby systems. "We are under attack. The Velok have returned. We cannot hold them back." But no answer came quickly enough. The council had grown soft, unready for a war of this scale. They had believed peace was eternal. Now they saw how fragile it truly was. On the council homeworld, leaders gathered in terror. Councillor Travik, once so proud in his calls to exile Earth, slammed his fist on the table. "Where are our fleets? Where is our defense? Tarvan will fall." Marenya's glowing form flickered with sorrow. "We were unprepared," she whispered. "We thought the old threats were gone." "We were wrong." Chamber filled with fearful voices. Some called for surrender. Others demanded sacrifices. No one knew what to do, and then out of the void another fleet appeared. They came without fanfare, without banners, without warning. Their ships were unlike anything the council had seen before. Sleek, dark, silent, yet carrying power that made the stars around them tremble. The Velok turned to face them, expecting another easy victory. But when the new fleet moved, the galaxy watched in shock. The ships fought with perfect precision. Their weapons were not only strong, but clever, cutting through the Velok's energy fields with careful strikes. Their shields bent and flexed like living walls, absorbing enemy fire and turning it back. One by one, the Velok ships fell, till the sky above Tarvan was filled with their burning wreckage. The people of Tarvan watched in awe. Their shelters shook with the thunder of battle, but when the dust cleared, they saw the strange fleet still standing. And then, at last, a transmission appeared on every screen, every channel, every frequency. A human face looked out at the galaxy. It was older than many remembered, lined with years of silence, but the eyes were sharp and steady. Ambassador Elias Grant. The same man who had walked out of the council chamber in silence so many years ago, now stood before them once again. His voice was calm, carrying no anger, no triumph. "People of the council," he said, "you are not alone. Humanity has returned." The chamber of the council froze. No one spoke. No one moved. Travik's scaled face twisted with disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. "They should have withered. They should have been nothing." But Marenya's glowing form trembled with a strange emotion hope. Grant continued. "We did not come back for revenge. We did not come back to reclaim our seat. We came because life itself was threatened, and though you cast us out, we could not ignore the call of survival. The Velok are an enemy older than the council itself. You were not ready for them, but we are." Behind him, the human fleet hovered in silent formation. Ships that had been forged in exile, tested in the far corners of the galaxy, now stood as guardians of the very people who had abandoned them. On Tarvan, survivors wept as they realized what had happened. Humanity had saved them. The exiled ones, the outcasts. The dangerous species the council had feared, those were the ones who had answered the call when no one else could. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. On every world, in every system, people whispered the same words. The humans have returned. For some, it brought relief. For others, it brought fear. What else had humanity built in the shadows of exile? What power had they gained while the galaxy ignored them? But no one could deny the truth. Humanity was no longer the young, reckless race the Council had cast aside. They were something new, something stronger, something that had risen in silence. In the Council chamber, chaos erupted. Some shouted for immediate forgiveness, begging the humans to rejoin the Council. Others cried that humanity must be feared more than ever, for if they could defeat the Veloc so easily, what could they not do? Through it all, Morenya whispered a single thought. We exiled them because we feared their fire, but we never understood the power of their patience. And on Tarvan, as the human fleet drifted silently above the saved world, the people began to cheer. The cheers were not just for survival, but for something greater, the return of a race that had left without a word, only to come back at the moment of greatest need. The galaxy had thought humanity was gone. Instead, they had been waiting, and now their silence was broken. The battle above Tarvan had ended, leaving the Veloc fleet scattered and defeated. Fires still burned on the surface of the planet, and the smoke of wrecked ships hung in the sky like dark clouds. But despite the destruction, the humans remained calm. They did not celebrate. They did not boast. Their fleet hovered silently, a watchful presence, as if waiting for permission to depart. Inside the council chamber, panic had given way to stunned silence. Counselors who had once voted to exile Earth now realized the truth they had ignored for decades. Humanity was no longer a reckless young race. They were powerful, disciplined, and capable of acts the galaxy had never expected. High Chancellor Veon floated to the center of the chamber, his form shifting with tension. Ambassador Grant, he said, his voice trembling slightly, you have saved Tarvan. You have defeated an enemy we thought was long gone. How is this possible? Grant's face appeared on the central screen, calm and unwavering. It is simple, he said. While the galaxy looked down on us, we grew stronger. While the Council worried about our recklessness, we learned to endure, to plan, and to prepare. And while you debated whether we were dangerous, we focused on survival, not just our own, but the lives of those who could not protect themselves. A murmur ran through the chamber. Some counselors looked ashamed, others frightened, and a few simply could not comprehend the words. Travik, the same counselor who had pushed hardest for exile, slammed his clawed hand on the table. You speak as if your exile gave you power. We cast you out. We protected the galaxy from your chaos. Grant's eyes remained steady. You did cast us out, he said, and that decision shaped us. Exile forced humanity to unite, to create, to strengthen. You wanted to punish us? Instead, you gave us freedom to grow in ways you could not understand. And we did not use that power to destroy the Council. We used it to protect life. Silence fell. The weight of his words pressed on every being in the chamber. No one had expected humility. No one had expected mercy. And yet, the humans offered it. Morenya's glow brightened slightly as she spoke. Ambassador Grant, your people have proven more than we could have imagined. But why return? Why not remain in your own space, away from the Council's eyes? Grant's voice softened, though it carried the same calm authority. Because the galaxy is connected. Threats like the Veloc do not stay in one place. They will strike wherever they can. We cannot ignore that. Exile taught us that isolation may protect, but it does not make one safe. We returned not for power, not for revenge, but to ensure that the life of countless species continues. The chamber remained quiet. For decades, counselors had feared humanity's unpredictable nature. Now they understood that unpredictability had been tempered by patience, by planning, by unity. The humans who had seemed reckless and chaotic had grown into something more, something the galaxy could neither ignore nor underestimate. Vayan hesitated, had asked the question that hung in every mind. Then what now, Ambassador? Will you rejoin the council? Will Earth seek its place among us once more? Grant's eyes reflected a light the council had never seen before, quiet pride that did not boast, but commanded respect. We do not seek to return, he said simply. We do not need your approval, your votes, or your treaties. Humanity has grown beyond the need for your recognition. We have our own path, our own alliances, our own destiny. But no, this we will not abandon life to destruction. When the galaxy faces threats too great for others, humanity will act. Not for reward, not for praise, but because it is the right thing to do. Tense silence followed. Counselors struggled to process the words. Some were filled with relief, others with fear. The galaxy had expected anger, had expected revenge. Instead, it received a promise and a power that could not be ignored. Travik's scales shimmered with a mixture of disbelief and anger. You speak as if you are above us, he growled. You have no place in the council. Your people have broken the trust of every species here. Grant's expression remained calm. We were never here to be trusted. We were here to exist, to survive, and to grow. You cast us aside because you feared us. That fear taught us nothing but patience, discipline, and foresight. You see our actions now and call them betrayal. But what you call betrayal, we call responsibility. For the first time, Travik faltered. He had imagined humans as reckless children, unworthy of the galaxy's respect. Yet here they were, disciplined, powerful, and willing to act when others failed. He could see now that Exile had been a mistake, not because humanity had acted recklessly, but because the council had underestimated them entirely. Across the chamber, Miranya whispered to herself, "We exiled fire, and now it warms the galaxy." Grant looked out toward the council and spoke his final words. The galaxy may fear humans. Perhaps you will always fear us. That is your choice. But know this, our power is not measured in weapons alone. Our true strength lies in patience, in unity, and in the will to protect life. Do not mistake silence for weakness. Do not mistake exile for defeat. Humanity endured, humanity grew, and humanity will continue. With that, his face disappeared from the screens, replaced by the image of the human fleet, silently standing guard above Tarvan. Then, without fanfare, the fleet slowly moved away, leaving the planet safe, but with a new understanding etched into every mind, for the Council and for the galaxy. A truth had been revealed. The greatest power of humanity was not anger, not weapons, not rebellion. It was their choice. The choice to endure, to grow, to act wisely, and to return at the moment that mattered most. And though the humans left once more, their presence lingered not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as a force of quiet strength that the galaxy could neither control nor ignore. The Council understood something vital. It had exiled not a reckless child, but a rising star. And stars, once ignited, cannot be dimmed by fear or decree. The galaxy would remember that day for generations, the day humans returned without boast, the day humans acted without demand, the day the exiled race showed the true meaning of strength. And somewhere, across the endless stretch of space, humanity sailed quietly onward, not seeking praise, not seeking recognition, only the silent fulfillment of their own destiny, a destiny that had begun the moment the Council had voted to exile them. The silence was no longer empty. It was full of promise.